Tip pooling and tip splitting, the complete guide for restaurant owners. With Homebase, many restaurant owners implement a system where servers and support staff split tips. When everyone is working together to make things more efficient for your evolving business, it makes sense to split the tips that customer-facing employees receive. If you start a new business operations like a delivery or curbside pickup crew, you might be considering starting a new tip-splitting policy to cover them as well. But the tip-splitting process can be a difficult one. That's why Homebase is here to help. We've laid out everything you need to know, from legal information to a breakdown of the different types of tip sharing and how to implement them with ease. What exactly is tip pooling? Tip pooling means all or some of the tips collected are combined and redistributed fairly among all employees at the end of a shift. A tip pooling policy makes sure back-of-house staff benefit from tip pooling arrangements. Are there laws for tip pooling? Employers are allowed to take a tip credit of up to $5.12 an hour of employees' tips against their minimum wage obligation. If the employer keeps any tips or requires employees to share tips with non-tipped employees, the employer cannot take a tip credit and must pay all employees the full minimum wage. How is tip pooling different from tip splitting? The main difference between tip pooling and tip splitting is that tip splitting is entirely voluntary and does not carry the same mandatory guidelines as tip pooling. Tip splitting involves splitting a certain percentage or amount of collected tips between all non-salaried employees. Are there laws for tip splitting? To comply with tip splitting laws, employers have to pay tipped employees the minimum cash wage and the federal minimum wage. Employers cannot claim a tip credit above $5.12 or one that exceeds the amount of tips received by the employee. Employees also have to be informed that their employer is applying for a tip credit. Federal, state, and local labor laws are constantly evolving. Homebase can help you stay on top of things by notifying you when these labor laws change. There are 3 ways of splitting tips by hours worked: through a point system or based on a percentage. First, let's look at how to split tips by hours worked. To split servers' tips based on hours worked, add up the total amount of tips and then divide that figure by the total hours worked. Then multiply that figure by the hours an individual server worked. Here's an example. Your employees earned a total of $1,000. Server number 1 worked an 8-hour shift. Meanwhile, server number 2 worked a 5-hour shift. Lastly, server number 3 worked a 7-hour shift. The total number of hours worked is 20. $1,000 divided by 20 is 50. So multiply that by each employee's hours. Server number 1, 50 times 8 equals $400. Server number 2, 50 times 5 equals $250. Server number 3, 50 times 7 equals $350. To check your calculations, make sure the individual employees' take-home tips equal up to the total amount of tips earned in the shift. Now let's look at tip splitting using the points system. A points system is an effective way for a manager to pool 20 to 100% of the server's tips and fairly disperse them among all of the employees. This is usually dispersed by a points system. Different types of employees are given a certain number of points. Let's say your servers were given 10 points each and your bartenders and bussers were given 5 points each. If $1,500 in tips were earned in a shift, it would look like this. Servers, 30 points. Bussers, 5 points. Bartenders, 10 points. Total points, 45. Divide the total number of tips, $1,500, by the total number of points, 45, and you'll get the worth of each point, which in this case is $33.30. Multiply each staff member's points by $33.30. This results in the servers receiving $330 and the busser and bartenders each receiving $166.50. Lastly, we have tip splitting based on percentage. This includes tipping out support staff based on a percentage of the tips they earned. Usually, the percentage split would be 10% to the bartender and another 25 to 30% shared among the remaining employees. Here's an example based on a to-go crew. If a delivery driver's total sales equaled $1,000 and they earned $200 in tips, here's how much the rest of the staff could earn. The cook would receive $20 or 10%. The host or person taking orders would receive $12 or 6%. The order preparer would receive $26 or 13%. The busser would receive $12 or 6%. The delivery driver would take home $130, which equals 65% of their total earnings. Regardless of the method, it's important to communicate your intentions with your employees and ask for their feedback. If you need an easy way to stay on top of things, Homebase can help keep you in the loop about changes to labor laws and also make time tracking, scheduling, and payroll easier. Sign up for Homebase today and spend less time on paperwork and more time running your business. Check out the link in the description to get started with Homebase for free.